You have been trying so hard to feel something. You have been sitting quietly, closing your eyes, asking yourself, am I feeling it yet? And the more you try, the more frustrated you become. Because instead of peace, you feel pressure. Instead of faith, you feel effort. And instead of confidence, you feel doubt creeping in. Let me gently tell you something that may set you free today. You were never meant to chase emotions. You were never meant to force excitement, joy, or intensity. When people say feeling is the secret, they are not talking about emotions the way the world understands them. They are pointing to something far deeper, calmer, and far more powerful. Think about this. When you know something is true, do you feel emotional about it all the time? When you know your name, do you get excited every time you hear it? When you know the sun will rise tomorrow, do you work yourself into joy over it? No, you simply know. That knowing is quiet. It is settled. It is natural. That is the feeling that creates. Many people misunderstand this idea and assume they must feel happy, grateful, excited, or high vibrational at all times. They think if sadness or fear appears, everything is ruined. But that belief itself becomes the block. True feeling is not emotional performance. True feeling is inner acceptance. It is the moment when your mind stops arguing and rests in this is done. There is a verse that says, be still and know that I am. Stillness comes before knowing, not effort, not emotional strain. Stillness, creation does not happen in panic, it happens in rest. Imagine ordering something online that you trust will arrive. After placing the order, you do not sit by the door crying with excitement or worrying all day. You simply go about your life. That calm certainty is the feeling. You are not trying to feel happy about the package. You just assume it is on its way. That assumption governs your behavior, your thoughts, and your expectations without effort. The secret is not emotion. The secret is identity. It is who you are being inside. Ask yourself this instead. If my desire were already fulfilled, how would I see myself? How would I think? How would I move through the day? The answer is almost always simple. You would feel normal. You would feel grounded. You would feel calm. You would feel less obsessed, not more. There is another verse that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Notice it does not say, as a man feels emotionally. The heart here is the inner knowing, the subconscious acceptance, the quiet agreement you have with yourself about what is true. You do not need to stop emotions like sadness or fear from arising. You are human. Emotions pass like weather. What matters is what you return to. Do you return to the assumption that life is working for you or against you? Do you return to the idea that you are chosen, supported, and guided? Or do you return to lack? When you try to suppress emotions, you give them power. When you observe them and remain anchored in your assumption, they dissolve naturally. Even someone who knows their desire is fulfilled can still have moments of doubt. But doubt does not cancel fulfillment. Only identification with doubt does. But think of a tree. The roots are hidden underground. Storms may shake the branches, but the roots remain firm. Your assumption is the root. Your emotions are the branches. You do not need to control the wind. You just need strong roots. There is a beautiful verse that says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives. The world gives excitement that rises and falls. True peace is steady. That is the peace of assumption. That is the feeling that creates. If you have been trying to force gratitude, force joy, force belief, you can stop now. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to soften. You are allowed to say, it is done, and let that be enough. Look at the times in your life when things worked out effortlessly. You likely were not affirming all day or trying to feel intense emotion. You simply assumed things would be fine, and they were. That same law is always operating. Nothing has changed except your awareness of it. Faith is not loud. Faith is quiet confidence. Faith is walking forward without constantly checking for proof. There is a verse that says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Substance comes before evidence. Inner agreement comes before outer confirmation. So instead of asking, do I feel happy enough? Ask, am I agreeing that this is mine? Instead of asking, am I emotional enough? Ask, am I at peace with this being done? The moment you accept something as natural, it begins to externalize. The moment you stop chasing it, it starts chasing you. Because effort implies lack, but acceptance implies ownership. You do not water a plant by pulling on its leaves. You water the soil and trust the process. In the same way, you nourish your desire by returning to the knowing that it is already planted, already growing, already alive. And if today you feel tired, uncertain, or discouraged, that does not mean you have failed. It means you are human. You can still say softly and lovingly, even now it is working out for me. That gentle return is more powerful than hours of forced emotion. There is a verse that says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be emotionally strong all the time. Power flows through surrender, not strain. Let yourself relax into this truth. You are not here to create through effort. You are here to allow through assumption. The law does not respond to your emotional highs and lows. It responds to what you accept as true. And the most beautiful part is this. Once you truly understand this, life becomes lighter. Manifestation becomes natural. You stop performing and start living. You stop chasing signs and start expecting results. You stop asking when and start knowing it is. So take a breath. Loosen your shoulders. You do not need to feel anything special right now. You just need to gently agree with the version of reality you choose. That agreement, quiet and steady, is the feeling that shapes worlds. And as you walk forward, remember this. What is meant for you does not require strain. What is already yours does not need emotional proof. It needs acceptance. It needs peace. It needs you to rest in the knowing that all things are already working together for your good. When you begin to live from this understanding, you may notice something interesting. Your outer world may not change immediately, but you do. Your reactions soften. Your inner conversations shift. Situations that once triggered fear no longer hook you the same way. That is not because you are suppressing emotion, but because your inner foundation has changed. This is why trying to feel happy often backfires. Happiness is a response, not a command. When you order your inner world correctly, happiness appears naturally, without effort. There's a verse that says, "Seek first the kingdom within, and all these things shall be added." Notice the order. Inner alignment first, outer addition follows. People often ask, but what if I feel sad while assuming? Understand this clearly. Sadness does not cancel. Assumption. Fear does not undo faith. Only persistence in the idea of lack does. You can feel sadness and still know you are supported. You can feel fear and still assume the outcome is favorable. Feelings rise and fall, but assumptions remain when chosen consciously. Think of an actor who knows the ending of the play. Even if a dramatic scene unfolds, the actor is not truly lost in fear because they know how the story resolves. In the same way, when you assume the end, life scenes lose their power over you. You participate fully, yet inwardly you are calm. There's another verse that says, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." That means the source of fulfillment is not outside circumstances, not other people, not future events. It is your inner agreement with what you choose to be true. This is why repetition is useful, not to convince reality, but to remind yourself. When you return to an assumption gently, over and over, it sinks into the subconscious. Not through force, but through familiarity. The subconscious accepts what feels natural. And what feels natural is what you visit often in a relaxed way. If you affirm something while tense, the tension speaks louder than the words. But if you think of something casually, lovingly, without urgency, it plants deeply. This is why daydreams can be so powerful. They are unforced. They carry no desperation. They feel normal. There is wisdom in the verse that says, "Let your requests be made known with thanksgiving." Thanksgiving implies expectation, not begging. You do not thank for something you believe will never arrive. Gratitude here is quiet recognition, not emotional excitement. You are not here to monitor every thought or emotion. That creates exhaustion. You are here to choose a direction and gently return to it when you wander. Just like steering a ship, Small, consistent adjustments matter more than sudden, forceful turns. And if at times you forget, if you react, if you feel overwhelmed, nothing is broken. You simply pause and remember who you are being. You remember the assumption you have chosen. You come back home inwardly. This is the freedom hidden inside. Feeling is the secret. The secret is not intensity. It is intimacy with your inner world. It is becoming so familiar with the idea of fulfillment that it no longer feels special. It feels normal. When something feels normal, it has no resistance. And what has no resistance flows easily into form. So you live your life. You laugh, you cry, you work, you rest. And beneath it all, there is a quiet knowing, a steady inner agreement, a gentle sense that things are unfolding exactly as they should, not because you are forcing them, but because you have stopped arguing with the truth you chose. And in that space, soft, faithful, and calm, creation continues effortlessly. You may also notice that when you stop trying to manage your emotions, they actually become kinder to you. They move through instead of sticking. They speak and then they pass. This is because you are no longer afraid of them. Fear feeds emotion. Acceptance releases it. There is a gentle wisdom in the idea that says, cast your cares and rest. Rest does not mean doing nothing in life. It means ceasing the inner struggle. It means no longer fighting yourself for being human. When you stop resisting what you feel, you create space for what you know to take the lead. This is where many people experience a shift. They realize they do not need to stay in the state perfectly. They only need to return to it. Returning is powerful because it builds trust within you. Every time you return, you are telling your inner world, this is who I am now. And the inner world listens. The subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotional neutrality. That may surprise you. Strong emotion can impress the mind, but calm repetition engraves it. This is why assumptions made in relaxed moments, before sleep, during quiet walks, in gentle reflection, are so effective. They bypass resistance. There is a verse that speaks of entering rest, not striving. Creation flows from rest. When you rest in an idea, you allow it to organize itself through you. You do not have to figure out the how. You do not have to micromanage the process. Life already knows how to move. When you truly accept this, urgency dissolves. You stop watching the clock. You stop checking circumstances. You stop needing reassurance. Not because you are pretending not to care, but because care has turned into trust. Trust feels like ease. If someone were to look at your life from the outside, they might not see dramatic changes immediately. But inside, something profound is happening. You are no longer asking reality for permission. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself inwardly. There is a quiet authority that comes with assumption. It is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is knowing without explaining. It is standing without proving. And this is why outer opinions begin to matter less. When your inner world is settled, outer voices lose their influence. You no longer need agreement from the world because you have already agreed within. This is the state from which things unfold naturally. Conversations line up. Opportunities appear. Circumstances rearrange. Not because you chased them, but because you stopped contradicting them internally. And through it all, emotions will still come and go. Joy will visit. Sadness will pass through. But beneath them, like a deep current under moving waves, there is steadiness. There is knowing. There is an unspoken certainty that you are supported, guided, and held. That quiet certainty is not something you perform. It is something you allow yourself to live from, moment by moment, breath by breath. As this steadiness becomes familiar, you may realize that you are no longer waiting for permission to feel secure. Security is no longer tied to outcomes. It is rooted in identity. You are not calm because things are perfect. Things begin to arrange themselves because you are calm. This is why inner dialogue matters more than outer emotion. What you repeatedly tell yourself in quiet moments becomes your reality. Not the dramatic thoughts, not the passing fears, but the conversations you return to when no one is listening. That is where assumption lives. There is a wisdom that says the word spoken inwardly does not return empty. Every inner agreement moves outward in its own time. And time, from this perspective, is not delay, it is preparation. While you are living, growing, learning, the unseen is arranging itself faithfully. When you truly grasp this, impatience softens. You stop demanding proof. You stop negotiating with life. You begin to live from fulfillment instead of toward it. And living from fulfillment feels surprisingly ordinary. Ordinary is powerful. The mind expects fireworks, emotional surges, dramatic certainty. But creation prefers simplicity. It prefers the natural. The subconscious accepts what feels like this makes sense for me. That is why forcing big emotions often keeps things away. Big emotions signal that something is not yet owned. Calm signals possession. If you had something valuable locked safely away, you would not keep checking the lock every minute. You would trust that it is secure. In the same way, once an assumption is accepted, there is nothing left to do but live. This is also why trying to hold the feeling all day becomes exhausting. You are not meant to hold anything. You are meant to be. Being is effortless. Holding is strain. The moment you feel tired, it is often a sign that you are trying to maintain a state instead of resting in an identity. Identity does not need maintenance. It simply expresses itself. There is a verse that speaks of being transformed by the renewing of the mind. Renewal is gentle. It happens as you repeatedly choose the same inner truth over time. Not by force, but by preference. You begin to prefer peace over panic, trust over tension, knowing over wondering. And when you slip, and everyone does, you do not punish yourself. You do not start over. You simply notice and return. That return is powerful because it is done with compassion, not fear. This compassion toward yourself is not separate from manifestation. It is part of it. A harsh inner world produces resistance. A loving inner world allows flow. When you treat yourself gently, life mirrors the gentleness back to you. You may also notice that desires feel different now. They feel lighter, less desperate, more like invitations than needs. This is a sign that lack is dissolving. You are no longer trying to fill a hole. You are expressing fullness. And from fullness, creation becomes a conversation, not a struggle. So let this be what you carry with you now. You do not need to master your emotions. You do not need to force belief, excitement, or constant positivity. You only need to rest in a gentle inner agreement about who you are and what is true for you. The power was never in emotional intensity. It was always in quiet acceptance. When you stop chasing feelings and start choosing assumptions, something deep settles inside you. You move through life with less resistance, less fear, and more trust. You begin to live as someone who knows, not someone who hopes. And that knowing reshapes everything. So breathe. Release the pressure. Let yourself be human without making it mean failure. Return again and again to the calm certainty that what is yours is already unfolding. Not because you are trying hard enough, but because you have finally allowed yourself to believe softly and fully that it is done.